Hello folks, and welcome to the Non-Diet Yogi podcast. I'm your host Casey Conroy, non-diet dietitian, naturopath student and yoga teacher. This is episode 25, addressing the root causes of weight gain. This episode actually continues on from the last episode, episode number 24, which was a bonus episode. So you can actually hear a sample of it everywhere, but you can hear the whole episode by signing up to the Non-Diet Yogi Patreon. Speaking of which, if you love this podcast, please subscribe and leave a rating and review on Apple iTunes. To do so is dead easy. From the show page, just scroll down until you see the rating and review section with the 5 stars. And for even more love, you can become a Patreon of the podcast for $2 US a month and receive all of the full Non-Diet Yogi bonus episodes in addition to a bunch of other good stuff. But for this episode, episode 25, all this information is free to everyone. Now, before I go any further, I just want to make it crystal clear that this is not a weight loss podcast. Very much not. If you're a regular listener, you will know that by now. And if you're not a regular listener, then welcome. The purpose of this episode is to offer some compassion and gentle guidance to anyone who has experienced some shifts in their body weight, be that in the last couple of weeks or months or even years, and they're distressed by it. So there are plenty of people out there who have noticed changes in their body weight and it does not bother them in the least. So this episode, probably not so much for those people. This is for people who are concerned about changes in their body weight. I want to help you get on board with your body here and really help you to understand at a deep level what might be going on. Given that we live in a really fat-phobic culture, usually the people that I see in clinic who have experienced body weight changes are more distressed when they gain weight as opposed to lose it, but not always. I certainly see people who find it very difficult to gain weight or have lost weight and are really concerned about that. But this episode is looking at the former, addressing the root causes of weight gain. This episode is for everyone from the layperson to students studying naturopathy or nutrition dietetics, all the way through to graduates and practitioners, and I'll offer ideas for all of those people here. I'll be excavating a little deeper than the kind of tried and true tired calories in, calories out rhetoric a lot of us are hearing all the time. Many folks who are concerned about weight that they might have gained are frequently just told by their doctor or their dietitian or whoever to just eat less and exercise more, as if they haven't already heard that. God, just so frustrating. Anyway, I'm going to take a deep dive into the root causes of weight gain here, and there are many, many, many. Exploring this from a very naturopathic lens is what I'm going to do today, as well as from a very body and physiology respecting place. Because at the end of the day, weight gain is not morally bad, contrary to what we've been taught. And it's not necessarily a sign that you're less healthy either. But I'll get into that. And if you listened to episode 24, you'll already have a pretty solid understanding of why weight does not equate to health and why that focus on weight can be really harmful and what we should focus on instead. But in this episode, I'll talk about 5 reasons why people gain weight that we can't really do much about and how to make peace with and accept those reasons. I'll talk about 8 also reasons why people gain weight that we can potentially, and I emphasize potentially, address. And this usually involves bringing certain body systems, certain kind of hormones back into balance, and also the caveats of this. And finally, I'll talk about 7 things to consider when you're a practitioner faced with a client who wants to lose weight, or things to consider if you are that person who wants to lose weight for whatever reason and for however long you have been feeling that way. So Just an announcement that I'm currently taking on new clients. My 4-year-old daughter, my youngest kid, has just upped her kindergarten days from 2 days a week to 4. So I now have a lot more slots on my calendar for client consults. I really love working one-on-one with people. I love getting to know each person so that I can really help them from a holistic health at every size aligned way that respects their body and where they're at in their life. I specialize in women's health, metabolic and hormonal imbalances, so things like thyroid issues. I really also love working with people who are experiencing eating disorders and disordered eating, especially orthorexia, which I have personally experienced and fully recovered from many years ago, and anyone really with weight and body image concerns. Because I'm an accredited practicing dietitian, I am also able to work with people who have plans with Medicare in Australia. So I can offer people a Medicare rebate as well as the usual private health fund rebates. All of that stuff is available. If you are interested in having a consult with me, you can jump onto my website, funkyforest.com.au, and there's a bunch of information about consultations available there. You can contact me for a free 15-minute introductory kind of no pressure chat just to see if we're a good fit for each other before booking a full consult. Very last thing I want to say before we get into the episode is just a trigger warning that in this episode there is a little bit of talk of calories, eating disorders, trauma, abuse, and the O words. So if you'll find that any of that is not going to be cool for you, please look after yourself and maybe just skip this episode. Also, last warning, there is some explicit language on this episode. As you'll soon find out, I'm very passionate about this topic. So if there are little sensitive ears around, you might want to put some headphones in to listen to this. Okay, here is the episode. Are you seeing a naturopath for weight loss? Hopefully, instead of putting you on another crash diet and telling you to exercise more and maybe throwing a bunch of fat-burning supplements at you, they'll look deeper and consider a couple of things. A good naturopath will address the root cause. If you have gained weight recently, or maybe over the last couple of months or years, and you're concerned about it, seeing any health practitioner is no small decision. But when you do see that health practitioner, especially if they are a holistic health practitioner, they should be taking a holistic approach. So some of the root causes of weight gain, and there are a lot of them, might come back to things like stress, digestion, metabolism, unregulated blood sugar, or hormonal imbalances. And a good naturopath or a good holistic health practitioner will address the root cause. So they'll be looking at ways of reducing stress, of supporting digestion, of improving your metabolism, regulating that blood sugar, or addressing hormonal imbalances that may be kind of linked to all of those other things. And yeah, doing some of those things may lead to weight loss, but then again, they may not. But one of the things is for sure, they'll certainly lead to better health. And there is a really, really strong need that we have in the natural health and wellness industries at the moment to uncouple aesthetic outcomes from health outcomes, because they're really not the same thing. A decrease in body weight does not automatically equal an increase in health. Losing weight does not tell you a lot about a response to treatment. We really need to look deeper than that, and we need to teach our clients, our patients, how and why to focus on health, not weight. And that's where that principle of docere, doctor as teacher, comes in. But that's a whole other topic for a whole other time. We really should be getting the focus off of the resulting appearance of the body and instead focusing on what is going on inside that client, inside that person's body, and how we can bring it back to a state of relative homeostasis, back to a place where the healing power of nature can then do its thing. That might mean that we need to take inflammation levels down, we need to improve digestion, we need to regulate blood sugar, all of those things that I just mentioned before. If someone comes in to see you for weight loss, getting that person on the bioimpedance scales as soon as they come in might not be the best thing. When we do that, we put the focus on weight and even shape or body composition, and that can really cause people to lose sight of what we're really going for, which is improved health. So I want to just quickly go over a couple of reasons why people gain weight. And actually there's a lot of them. And a really good naturopath will consider all of these. A really good practitioner in general, really, whether they're a dietitian, a nutritionist, naturopath, herbalist, a general practitioner, a doctor, or whoever else you might be seeing, acupuncturist, etc., will consider all of these reasons. They won't just write you a script for Duramine in the case of a doctor. A good doctor will not just write a script for Duramine. They won't just put you on a crash diet. They won't just tell you to exercise more. This also applies to personal trainers and fitness coaches as well. And unfortunately, this happens so often, right? This happens all the time. So anyway, there are two kind of categories of reasons that I could think of as to why a human body might gain weight. The first category are things that we can't really do anything about. And the second category are areas where we can potentially help bring some body systems back into balance, and that may result in change in body weight, but it also may not. So the first category, things we can't do anything about that lead to weight gain. The first one, number one, is genes. A natural genetic tendency. If somebody is naturally a bigger size, say they come from a family where bigger people have been the norm for generations and generations. I can think of certain ethnicities where people just tend to be taller. I think of Scandinavian people, or people tend to be heavier set. That's just in their genes. Certain Eastern Europeans can have like a heavier set, kind of sturdier, more resilient constitution and body shape and size. And that's normal for them. It's not pathological. It's not a disease. That's just their natural genetic tendency. And this is why we all need to celebrate body diversity, but especially within the natural health sector, we need to recognize and celebrate body diversity and understand that health comes in many, many different shapes and sizes. Number two, the second reason why someone may have gained weight is because of a normal life stage that they are at. So for example, in menopause, people will naturally put on I just spoke to Dr. Caitlin O'Connor recently about this, and she reminded me that people naturally put on 5 to 15 pounds. I'm just going to try to convert that in my head to kilograms, but it's something like, 2 to 8 kilos. And a lot of that is abdominal fat deposition. And that is not bad. That is not pathological. That's actually protective, because in menopause, as those estrogen levels start to decline and we're not producing so much estrogen from our ovaries, as they start to wind down, the fat that our bodies start to be put down on our abdomens is protective. It actually continues to create and secrete a little bit of estrogen, which is protective for our bone health. So normal life stage, can't and shouldn't really try, I don't think, to change that. Other life stages I can think of where there are normal fluctuations in weight are kind of all of them. So throughout childhood, we can have growth spurts. The number of children or parents who have come to me and who have come to some of my other colleagues really worried that their child has, or their teenage girl, for instance, has put on, a fair bit of weight in a short period of time, and they're freaking out now that they might be overweight in air quotes. It's not a rare thing that happens. Also, in adolescence as well, obviously, people going through puberty, there are going to be weight fluctuations that are totally normal. Changes during pregnancy, obviously, postpartum as well. Our expectations of postpartum women and their bodies are insane, to put it lightly. Andropause, not just menopause, bodies change all the time. There are normal life stages where they will just change, and they're meant to. There's also other kind of smaller cycles our bodies go through. I think of the menstrual cycle, where it's normal for a female's body to fluctuate, sometimes 2-3 kilos in one day. Our bodies can gain or lose weight depending on what our hormones are doing. We can gain and lose. It's pretty much all water weight, by the way, ladies. It's normal. It's normal. When people are really stressed, or they're going through a period of chronic stress, whether that's due to illness or life circumstances, etc., there can be weight changes, whether it's gain or loss or both. All of these are physiological responses to hormones, to stress, to environment. During winter, people tend to put on a bit of weight. It's protective, it's normal, it's fine. All of this is okay. Bodies are meant to change almost all the time. So we need to respect these natural body changes. And as natural health practitioners, you'd think we'd have a pretty good idea of this stuff. But that's not always the case. Number 3, third reason why people might put on weight. This is a big one. They might have put on weight as a result of chronic dieting. So being in that diet binge cycle time and time again. And also as a result of just irregular eating. So shift workers, people working 12-hour shifts. My partner, who is a paramedic, regularly tells me that himself and his colleagues will go 6, 7, 8, 9 hours without eating because they're on their feet. They're so busy tending to patients that they don't even get to eat. And I'm sitting there melting inside and going, oh my God, that's so bad for your blood sugar levels, and that's so inflammatory, and it's going to push your stress hormones up, blah, 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 blah. And that kind of thing, that it's dieting, but it's not intentional dieting, but it kind of is that really irregular kind of stressful eating pattern can really mimic the famine feast diet binge cycle that many people who are dieting are on, and the result is the same. It can result in a lot of inflammation in the body, and over time, if it's repeated over and over again, that can lead to an increase in your set point weight. So being aware of chronic dieting, disordered eating, irregular eating, diet binge cycle, this is really, really important for any practitioner, but especially for natural health practitioners, to understand just how powerfully the diet binge cycle can impact body weight. And it might be the case that someone's body has been under so much stress, or their set point weight, has had to go up and stay up because their body's just been through so much trauma that that body weight might not want to change right now, and it might not want to change ever. And the best thing to do is actually just to nourish that person's body, to get them eating regularly, to get them eating adequately, and their body weight may not ever go down. Or it may, but even maintaining a higher body weight is a hell of a lot less inflammatory, a lot healthier than yo-yo dieting and losing weight, gaining a bit more, losing weight, gaining it, etc. Okay. Where are we up to? The fourth reason in this category of kind of can't do much or anything about reasons why people might put on weight is weight stigma, whether that's internalized or externalized. So research has shown that weight stigma can be just as, if not more, of a contributing factor to so-called obesity or overweight. I hate those words. I hate them. The O words. The stress and the inflammation created by that constant social stigma, that fear and stress of people in larger bodies going out in public and not being not being sure of whether they will fit in the seats at a cafe or fit in the designated airplane seats, or not knowing if they're going to have horrible abuse hurled at them because of their appearance. All of this is weight stigma, and it can create some really significant stress levels for people. And we all know that stress, especially when it's chronic, especially when it's ongoing, is really unhealthy. It pushes adrenaline and cortisol up. It can result in cortisol dominance, which then obviously can lead to all kinds of body weight changes, usually increased deposition of fat, kind of messed up blood sugar imbalances and insulin resistance, simply because of the stress and the stigma that people in certain body types are exposed to. That shit can be really inflammatory. So that is reason number 4 why people may be living in bigger bodies or maybe have gained weight over the years. I put in this category of can't do anything about, which is a bit pessimistic, because we can, if we have the skills and the knowledge, work with these people on reducing their levels of internalized weight stigma, so the weight stigma that they direct towards themselves via body image work and other such things. But the external weight stigma that exists in our social environment, that exists in our culture, I think that's a long game kind of thing. And we can be part of movements that aim to reduce weight stigma. And that is slowly happening, thank goodness. But it's one of those things where it's like, weight stigma, it's probably going to be around for a little bit longer, and the best we can do is brush up on our body image counselling skills and help the person to challenge and start to reduce their own internalized weight stigma. But that's a really big bucket of fish there. I won't go into too much today. The fifth and final reason that people may have gained weight that I'll put in this can't do anything about family is a controversial one, and that is because they're on the oral contraceptive pill. So people on the OCP, depending on which pill it is, whether it's a high or low dose, whether it's estrogen or combined progesterone estrogen pill, may put on weight. And if that person has decided that the pill is the best solution for them at the time for preventing unwanted pregnancy, and who are we to say that they should get off it immediately and I don't know, use the rhythm method or whatever. I love the rhythm method. I'm not a fan of the oral contraceptive pill's effects on the female body, especially when used for many, many, many years at a time. There are lots of downsides to long-term use of the OCP, but there are going to be those people who are using it as their primary form of, avoiding pregnancy. And if they've gained weight because of that and they're not in a place where they are willing or able to come off of the pill, that's sort of a thing we can't do a lot about if they've gained weight, because that's like, well, okay, that's it. Let's work on all the other facets of your health. And that is why I keep saying this thousands of times over and over again. We need to focus on health overall, not weight. If that person is open to having a discussion about coming off the pill, and letting their body's hormones kind of rebalance and finding other ways that are effective to prevent unwanted pregnancy and so on, then that's a conversation we can have. But remember, we need to meet people where they are at and not go on a huge spiel about how bad the pill is for them and that it's going to do X, Y, Z horrible things to them and they should come off it immediately and that's going to make them lose weight. It's just a misleading conversation, and it doesn't respect personal reasons and nuance and why people make the decisions that they make. There are also other medications that can cause weight gain, things like certain antidepressants, beta blockers, corticosteroids, and some migraine medications as well. And I'm probably missing a bunch of others, but these also come under the category of so-called things we can't really do anything about besides adjusting medications. And obviously that is all going to be in the hands of your doctor. So those are all the reasons that people may gain weight that we, sort of can't do anything about, that we need to just respect, basically. And then there are a second group of reasons for weight gain where we as natural health practitioners can potentially help that person bring their body systems back into balance, which may or may not result in weight gain. I know that I've probably called this podcast something like, addressing the root cause. I don't want you to think that doing so, addressing the root cause, will automatically lead to weight loss, because that's not always the case. And that's why it's so important we celebrate body diversity and uncouple weight from health and all that other good stuff I'll get to in a sec. I want to just run through the reasons why people may have gained weight, where we can help them, where we can actually help bring their body systems back into balance, which may result in weight loss. So the first one's one that I've already mentioned, that the weight gain may be a result of chronic dieting, of eating irregular meals, of being in that famine feast diet binge kind of cycle. And this is one where obviously we need to focus on behavior change and explaining the diet binge cycle, explaining why it's not health generating, explaining why chronic dieting is unhealthy, explaining why eating regular meals and eating adequate energy and fat and protein and carbs is all going to help heal the body from those weeks or months or years of deprivation. And often, I would say, often, but not always, this can result in body weight going down over time. And I mean over months, years. Once the body really, really is feeling like it's being fed adequately and regularly, and say someone's metabolism starts to self-correct and any hormonal imbalances might start to be corrected. A bunch of other stuff is healing, organs are healing, muscle mass and bone mass is being restored. The nervous system is being restored. The person can think more clearly because they're getting energy to their cells and to their brain because they're eating regular, adequate meals again. All of this stuff can increase health, it can reduce stress levels, and that may lead to a decrease in body weight. Remember, I put this reason for weight gain in the family of can't do anything about kind of reasons for weight gain, because there's no guarantees, right? Even if someone does heal their relationship with food, heal their metabolism by eating properly again, we may not see any weight changes, whether that's weight on the scales or body composition. I often see changes in weight. I often see improved body composition. I often see reduction in weight, but it's not guaranteed. Some people will just stabilize weight and maintain, and they may stay at a relatively high, so-called high body weight. Some people might actually gain weight, especially if they were super undernourished and emaciated. I think of someone who maybe has had so-called typical anorexia nervosa, which that's a whole other kettle of fish I won't get into, but so-called typical anorexia nervosa, where someone's body weight is, no more than 85% of their ideal body weight. So they are visibly thin, emaciated even. This is where bringing those body systems back into balance, bringing back proper regular eating can result in an increase in body weight. However, this can also happen in so-called atypical anorexia nervosa, which is by far the more common form of anorexia nervosa, and therefore should not be called atypical. But as I said, I'll try not to go into that little debacle. People who may have been maintaining a lower BMI, a lower body weight than their bodies naturally want to maintain, may start to eat properly again and gain weight and find a higher set point weight, even if that body weight is higher than what the BMI range, say, is normal or healthy. BMI is bullshit, by the way, so don't worry about that kind of stuff. But this is a reason sometimes why, by increasing health and by starting to nourish the body properly, we might see an increase in body weight, and that body weight may not ever go down again. And we need to make peace with that, and we need to help our clients to understand the value in that. And that's a really tough gig. That is a hard conversation to have, and it kind of brings attention to the reasons why naturopaths, holistic health practitioners really need to have at least a rudimentary idea of eating disorder awareness, red flags, and so on. But I'll talk a bit about that later. Okay, moving on. Number 2 reason why people may have gained weight that we might be able to, help them with is hormonal imbalances. So for example, I think of hypothyroidism or subclinical hypothyroidism, which is often due to someone dieting for ages, someone being in chronic stress for ages, someone underfueling and undernourishing their bodies for quite some time. That's one hormonal imbalance that can lead to weight gain. There are also things like estrogen dominant conditions, so endometriosis, where people may or may not notice an increase in body weight. Cortisol dominance, obviously, if people have been in a stress cycle for a really long time. These are all hormonal imbalances. It's all tied up with the thyroid, pituitary, hypothalamus, so the HPA axis, with reproductive hormones, with cholesterol. I won't go into the nitty-gritty of that. That's another big conversation. But basically, hormonal imbalances can be a reason why someone's body weight goes up. And this is why we really need to dig deeply and address the root causes. If someone is hypothyroid and we just put them on a restricted calorie diet and tell them to exercise more, it's going to make it worse. They're going to feel worse. They're going to be even more tired. We're going to stress their bodies out even more. I don't think there's ever really a good time to put someone on a restricted calorie diet and tell them to exercise more. I just don't see that as a solution ever. If I think about it just doesn't help people. Anyway, I'll try to stay on track. So hormonal imbalances, in which case we need to look at why is the thyroid underactive. We need to look at why is the body not cycling estrogen out efficiently. Why are they cortisol dominant, etc., etc. We need to dig deep and learn why that hormonal imbalance is occurring, rather than just go, oh, they're estrogen dominant, let's supplement them with progesterone and put progesterone cream on them. Or even, just give a herb to bring that down. We need to go deeper than that, I think, and ask ourselves, well, why is that estrogen increased? Or is it relative or is it absolute? Okay, moving on. Reason number 3 why people may have gained weight in a way that we may be able to bring back into balance for them or help them with is the liver not detoxifying properly. So I mentioned that estrogen dominance can be it can be present if the liver is not detoxifying estrogen and moving that out. It can also there can also be other things going on with the liver. So if the liver has been really stressed and damaged due to excessive alcohol intake, especially long-term sustained excessive alcohol intake, anything more than I think it's a lifetime consumption of more than 100 litres of pure alcohol leads to almost guaranteed liver cirrhosis, like pretty bad liver damage. And if someone is going through a really rough time, say they're drinking, I don't know, 6 to 8 standard drinks a night, I have heard of this happening. It happens, and it is not uncommon. It's only going to take them a couple of years to get to that point of irreversible liver damage. So, livers. I know it's such a stereotypical naturopathic thing to say, but if the liver is freaking out, whether that's due to alcohol excess, too many liver insults, also the diet binge cycle, that famine or fasting cycle where people are consistently not getting enough protein, they're not getting enough glucose for normal liver function, and for that thyroid conversion, we need the thyroid hormone T4 to be converted in T3, and part of that process happens in the liver. If the liver is not working properly, that thyroid conversion is going to be affected, and that can lead to conditions like hypothyroid. So the liver struggling can be tied to all of these other processes. It can be tied to thyroid problems. It can be tied to digestive problems, which I'll talk about in a sec. So if someone's liver is struggling for whatever reason, we need to look at why. We need to obviously do some assessment, do some testing, figure out exactly what's going on with the liver, and then support the liver. And there are many, many ways we can do that. Maybe I think I've written articles about ways that we can do that. But again, this may result in estrogen being moved out of the body properly. It may result in reduced alcohol intake and allowing the liver to repair. It may resulting in it may necessitate someone eating regularly and eating enough protein and getting enough and the right kind of carbohydrate so their livers can work properly. This is the stuff we got to look at. It's so much more complicated than just giving someone a 1,200 calorie diet, right? And this is why I suppose it is, I don't know, maybe harder to find a practitioner who will do this, because it just requires more nuance and brain power to do this investigative work. But, this is what a good practitioner will do. Anyway, that was reason number 3. Reason number 4 of why people may gain weight that we could potentially do something about is digestion, and especially constipation. So if someone is constipated, and my definition of constipated is, actually I'll tell you my definition of normal bowel movements. If someone is moving their bowels 1 to 2 times a day, maybe even 3 times a day, maybe, and those poos are easeful, you don't need to strain, there's no blood, there's no impacted hard feces. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty here, check out the Bristol stool scale. We're aiming for around a 4 on the Bristol stool scale, so like really easy to pass bowel movements. This is what we're aiming for. If someone is pooping less than once a day, even if they are not hard, difficult to evacuate poos, I would consider that constipated. And similarly, if someone has really impacted poo that's difficult to remove, and you need to sit on the toilet for 15, 20 minutes just to do a poo, and you get through, I don't know, a whole sports section of the newspaper or whatever, that is also constipation. So if someone is constipated, they're not going to be removing, I hate saying this word, but toxins. A better word for it would be metabolic byproducts, just all the stuff that your body's already processed and needs to get out of your system. And that can include hormones such as estrogen and broken down estrogen. And if you're constipated and you're not able to poo that stuff out, your body will actually begin to reabsorb it. And we obviously don't want to reabsorb the stuff that's meant to go out in your poo. If we're reabsorbing estrogen, for instance, that can lead to estrogen dominance, and that can lead to weight gain, essentially, or it can contribute to weight gain. So constipation is a really big deal, and this is where obviously some dietary changes, maybe some movement, behavioral changes, exercise, possibly some herbs or nutraceuticals. But again, we look at the whole person, we address the root cause. Let me think. The 1, 2, 3, 4, where are we up to? The fifth reason, and related to that constipation thing, that someone may have gained weight recently or over the long term, maybe generally a high toxin load. So whether it's heavy metals, environmental toxins, whether they're eating everything out of microwaved plastic containers and they're ingesting a lot of BPA and phthalates and other such xenoestrogens. Fat, it's got lots of incredible functions, and one of those functions is that it safely stores toxins away. It kind of sequesters and hides it from the rest of the body. So if the body is experiencing a high toxic load, and by toxins I mean, these chemicals from the environment that our bodies would prefer to not have a high level of in us. Our bodies can deal with toxins. We've got a liver, we've got a digestive system, we've got kidneys. Our bodies can deal with toxins. It depends on the dose though. And if we're steeped in this stuff, or we have heavy metal poisoning, or we're working and living in a super toxic environment, or we've got a job spray painting or using pesticides all day, or handling asbestos, or whatever it might be, our body's detoxification systems can start to be overwhelmed, and fat is a way to safely store those toxins away from other metabolically active cells. This is why we might see that weight gain or fat gain in people who are exposed to a lot of toxins. The fat is actually protecting the body from the toxins that it's absorbed and is unable to get out of the system. So obviously in this case, the solution isn't, put that person on a calorie restricted diet to make them burn their fat, because even if that does work, which it may not, it usually just slows down the metabolism, but even if that results in some of the body's fat cells opening, they're opening under duress, they're opening under famine and stress. And when that happens, the toxins that are stored in those fat cells are going to just be released back into the bloodstream where the body was trying to keep them out of in the first place. So again, we need to be really savvy with our detoxification protocols and dealing with heavy metals and environmental toxins and stuff. It might be as simple as telling someone, look, eat out of a ceramic bowl instead of heated up plastic all the time, and make sure that, just check out how many chemicals you're applying to your body in the form of makeup and in bath products, deodorants and stuff like that. It all adds up. Like, not one of these things is terrible and we should avoid at all costs and they're the devil, but if someone is using a lot of these things, if they've also got a job where they're exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, then maybe we should think about that. Okay, reason number 6 that people may have gained weight that we may be able to do something about is high stress. I know this is a really basic one, and I think I should probably do an article or a podcast on stress and exactly what it does to the body, how it works, how it might lead to weight gain. But stress, like, who doesn't experience this in their lives, right? Stress can be due to so many things. It can, be due to work, study, toxic relationships, or even normal relationships, kids. It can be due to chronic pain. If someone's in chronic pain, that's going to increase their overall stress hormone levels. It can be an artifact of someone's socioeconomic status. So for instance, if someone is living in a low socioeconomic area, that they have a low income, they're probably going to be eating more fast food. And there's nothing wrong with fast food as such. It is not evil per se. Just want to make that clear. But if all someone is eating is fast food that is packed with trans fats and all that kind of thing, it's low nutrient food, it's eventually going to create inflammation over time, and that can lead to fat deposition, because often when all people are eating is fast food, they're not getting the nutrients their body needs, so that they may find their hunger cues are start to become dysregulated. They're not satisfied because they're eating this high calorie, low nutrient food, and that can obviously lead to more fat deposition, especially if it's in combination with increased stress or cortisol dominance, which many people who are living in a lower socioeconomic bracket are dealing with. They're dealing with increased levels of stress. They're dealing with all kinds of things, trauma, abuse, possibly, unequal power dynamics with people that they need to work for, and having to commute for 3 hours one way because they have to live far, far out of the city because of their financial constraints. So this kind of stuff, we need to consider this. There's no point, saying to someone in this situation, you just need to eat all organic and here's $400 worth of supplements. No, that is the wrong thing to do. We need to think more broadly than that. Obviously, this is a systemic issue. It's not just the individual. It's not the individual, actually. It's not even just a case of, they need to be educated more. No, this is a systemic social problem. And the thing that kind of bugs me about naturopaths sometimes is, at least once we've graduated, at least in Australia, people who are in these lower socioeconomic brackets cannot afford to see a naturopath and pay a naturopath the full fee that they often will charge. They might be able to afford going to a student clinic in one of the capital cities. I know my college has student clinics where people can attend for a reduced price. In those situations, we might see people in lower socioeconomic brackets, and we might see people who are having to rely on fast food for fuel and calories more so. But once we graduate, the people we see as naturopaths tend to have a little bit more wiggle room on their in their budgets. So we might sometimes forget that there are these systemic forces at work. I'm a dietitian, so I am a student naturopath. I've got a year to go. I'm a dietitian, and I have seen people from all over the socioeconomic spectrum. I see people, or I have seen people for a long time, not anymore, but for a long time I would bulk bill. So I would see people who didn't have to pay to access my services. And I saw plenty of people who were in this situation where they were eating lots of fast food because they had to work 3 jobs to support their 2 children. They were a single mum, and they had to commute 2 hours a day to work, and all that they could afford and manage was McDonald's or KFC or whatever for their kids and for themselves. So anyway, God, I'm going off into another rabbit hole, but high stress due to factors that can't always be helped is a reason why people may gain weight. And if those factors can be helped, then let's go for it. If it's chronic pain and the person needs to be referred to a physio or have their pain managed or get some body work, then let's refer them on to those people. If it's toxic relationships, so they're having a hard time emotionally, hello psychologist, hello, off to the counselor, etc. Asking if that person has good social support in place. So there's so much nuance to this. But anyway, I'm going to move on. I'm just really passionate about that particular point, if you couldn't tell. Anyway, another reason people may have gained weight is eating disorders. Yes, eating disorders. So this is one of my passion areas. And it's not just binge eating disorder, by the way. People often think only people who have binge eating disorder are going to put on lots of weight. No. People with eating disorders show up in all body sizes, and that applies to binge eating disorder, that applies to anorexia nervosa, that applies to bulimia nervosa, and that applies to subclinical eating disorders and EDNOS and such. So when people have eating disorders, obviously, they probably aren't getting regular, adequate nutrition. They're probably not getting balanced nutrition, and this can absolutely impact weight. It can lead to weight gain in some cases, not just weight loss in the case of anorexia nervosa, but sometimes it can lead to weight gain. So there's that. Now, very, very rarely, I struggle to think of any cases where this is the case. I can maybe think of one person I've met in my entire life who was not a client, just someone that I knew. But rarely is weight gain caused by what the diet industry tells us it is caused by. And that is that the person is just eating too much and not exercising enough. Okay, so as I said, I've met maybe one person ever in that category, and I didn't know their backstory, so I could be completely wrong that is the reason why they were gaining weight. But even if that is the reason that the person has gained weight because they're simply eating too much and not exercising enough, even if that is the reason, if they're coming to see us as a practitioner, we need to get to the root cause of that. Why are they quote unquote overeating? Why are they, eating so much and not exercising enough? Often it's due to restriction. It's a backlash reaction to some form of restriction that's either taken place in the past, whether it takes place all morning and afternoon and they're binging at night, or if it took place for 5 years while they were on some crazy macrobiotic diet and now they spend the next 8 years massively overeating. Often restriction can be a reason why people are, in air quotes, eating too much. But if it's not restriction, it could be habits that have been carried over from childhood. It could be the food environment, as I talked about, that low socioeconomic bracket where people can only access low nutrient, high calorie foods. There could be some emotional eating going on, and there are millions of reasons why that can happen. It's not a bad thing. It's just not a bad thing. None of this stuff is bad. It's just that we need to get to the root cause of this. It could be due to trauma that someone eats and eats and eats and eats. We need to address that stuff and then refer on as required. This is why the so-called obesity epidemic, I hate that term, but why that is a social issue. It's a social matter. We need to have more systems in place to support equitable food environments. And it's also an epidemic of disordered eating. We're so conditioned that we need to eat less and move more. This is just the bullshit rhetoric we've been force-fed, pun unintended, for years and years and decades, that we just need to get that calorie equation right and take in less calories than we put out. Obviously, it's so much more nuanced and complex than that, but it takes longer than, 5 seconds to explain this, which is why this podcast is going on 45 minutes, so I'm going to try to wrap this up soon. Okay, but I think the point I'm trying to make is that as practitioners and also as people, just humans who are curious about these things, or we're wondering why we've put on weight, or we're frustrated or concerned or ashamed or whatever it is, whatever feelings we have about changes in our bodies that have taken place, we need to learn about this stuff. We need to understand, the issues around equitable food environments and social justice. We need to understand that we're living in an epidemic of disordered eating. And as practitioners, that's what we need to learn about. We don't need to prescribe another 1,200 calorie diet plan and a bunch of HIIT workouts. It's just dumb, right? It just doesn't make sense. So those are the reasons why people may gain weight. And I'm sure I've missed out on a bunch of other reasons, but those are the ones I could think of off the top of my head. I think with all that said, one of the most important things to mention here is that all of us, practitioners, people seeing practitioners, we need to take the emphasis off of weight and onto health. If we're a practitioner, we really need to consider re-educating our clients about how we've been led to conflate weight and health for so long. And these are tricky conversations to have. Our clients might not want to hear this. They might get angry. They might want to go elsewhere. They might not come back to us. They might want to go see a practitioner or a person, and a personal trainer or a coach or whatever, who's going to give them the calorie restricted diet and tell them to exercise more, because that's what we've been so trained to think is the problem. So this is tricky and this is risky, especially if you're a practitioner and your livelihood depends on helping people and giving them what they want, or at least what they think they want. And I've been there. I remember early in my career working in a colonic clinic on James Street, trendy James Street in Burleigh Heads on the Gold Coast. It's super trendy, kind of wellness, hippie, kind of part of the Gold Coast, higher socioeconomic clientele, where I was just telling people what they expected to hear. I was telling them, you need to go on this strict detox diet in addition to getting regular colonics. And that was the point I'm ashamed to say in my life, when I was making the most money as a dietitian. That is what's popular. That is what so many people seek out. But I felt empty, like my soul had left the building. It was really wrong, and I was still working through my own disordered eating at the time. But as I worked through that, I also realized, like, this is just not the way. I am not helping people here, even if they think that I'm helping them in the short term. So anyway, taking the emphasis off of weight and onto health is tricky. Because we have been so sold on the need to lose weight and to look for quick fixes. We, as practitioners, need to be prepared to lose clients. We need to be prepared to get no returns. They will come back if and when they're ready, or they may not. Like, that's a risk, I think, that as a weight neutral practitioner I take. And I'll admit it, it's fucking hard. It is hard. I could be making a lot more money giving out restricted diet plans and, I don't know, detoxes and shit like that, but I can't do it. I can't do it. Anyway, the last thing I want to say as part of this podcast, which is a very off the cuff podcast, very impromptu, by the way, and thank you for listening so far if you have, is suggest some solutions. So I've mentioned all of these ways that people can put on weight, and whether or not we can help them. I now want to just talk about some general kind of broad spectrum solutions. There are 6 of them that I could think of that we as holistic health practitioners, whether we're naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, acupuncturists, energy healers, yoga teachers, whatever it is, we can all do this. Even if we're not natural health practitioners, you're a dietitian, you're allied health, you're an exercise physiologist, you're a physiotherapist, you're a specialist, you're a psychologist. Here is some stuff that we can do to meet people where they're at and to help people when someone comes to us saying, I want to lose weight. What can you do to help me? Solution number 1. We need to celebrate body diversity. I know it sounds so simple, but specifically within the natural health sector, we need to celebrate body diversity. I do not see this happening enough. The image of the white, lean, but not too muscular, curvy, but not too curvy, if you know what I mean, blonde woman doing some extremely advanced yoga posture on a beach while drinking green juice, that is still the natural health and wellness kind of image that we maybe unconsciously go for, I think, a lot of us as natural health practitioners. And that body ideal is really limiting. Bodies come in all shapes and sizes. And healthy bodies also come in all shapes and sizes. Health does not have a particular body size or weight or composition or shape. So, natural health practitioners, if you're listening to this, I really strongly suggest you learn about health at every size, that you learn about size inclusivity, that you learn about non-diet approaches, body acceptance, and the fat liberation movement. This is all, these are all portals to celebrating body diversity. Okay, solution number two. We need to understand that health is not a moral imperative. So many of us, if you're a health practitioner like I am, we got into health and the natural health field because, well, we want to be healthy, but also possibly because we think everyone else should be healthy. And if that's the case, I just want to say that not everyone needs to be healthy. And if we think this, we're wrong about that. Not everyone has health as a goal. And that's okay. Health is not a moral imperative. And judging someone on their eating habits or their health or their disease status or their body shape, size, appearance is not cool. Like, I don't even think I need to say that, but also I need to say that. Solution number 3, work with people where they're at, meet people where they're at. Health means different things to different people. So for those people for whom health is a goal, it can mean different things to different people. Someone in a wheelchair with chronic disease can be healthy and they can be on the upward spiral. They can be moving towards a place of greater health by their own definition and according to their own personal goals. And on the other hand, a natural bodybuilder or a fitness influencer or even a health and wellness influencer on Instagram can be extremely unhealthy. They can be on the downward spiral into disease and dysfunction. They can be suffering with an eating disorder or severe body dysmorphia or any number of other health conditions. And yeah, we just need to recognize that health means really different things to different people, and to know what health is to the person sitting in front of us and to meet them where they're at. Solution number 4, we need to respect all goals. Now, most, if not all, the health prackies I know do this. They are super respectful, empathetic, kind, compassionate people. But when I say we need to respect all goals, that also includes aesthetic goals. So if someone comes to me saying, I want to enter my very first natural bodybuilding competition, I want to enter this bikini competition, or even I want to get my body fat down to this percent, or I want to, do XYZ for aesthetic reasons. I want to lose fat around my abdomen. Just know if and when you need to refer a client on to someone else. So if someone comes to me and they want weight loss above all else, and my focus is health, I know I'm not the right person for them. I'm a health practitioner. I'm not a bodybuilding coach. I'm not a modeling agent. I'm a health practitioner. And if I know that the things that they want and are prepared to do to get to the aesthetic goal that they're after, if I know that is going to actually compromise their health, then I can't in my right heart and mind work with them. And at the same time, I need to respect that as their goal, and it is not my job to change their mind on that. I mean, I will respectfully, with consent, maybe offer some information about health and how it is not necessarily, you're not at peak health when you're standing on the stage at the fitness bikini competition kind of thing, but you need to know when to refer on, or to let them find someone who's a better fit for them at that point. Solution number 5. We need to understand that the life stages where there is normal weight fluctuation and honor them. So I touched on this back in the reasons why people gain weight that we can't necessarily do anything about. We need to honor those life stages. So whether it's growing children, adolescents, someone who's pregnant, someone in menopause, perimenopause, or andropause, someone just at different stages of their menstrual cycle. The number of perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal women who come to see me alarmed about their weight gain is kind of sad, and it's heartbreaking. It's a side effect of the beauty standards that are absorbed by women in our culture. Women who think they need to look like they're 20 even when they're 60. It's just unrealistic. Same applies for postpartum mums who want to get back to their so-called pre-baby body 2-3 months after they've given birth. It's just not physiologically compatible. It's kind of nonsensical. And if there was a way to get them to do that, it would be really unhealthy, and it is really unhealthy. Teenage girls who come to see me, the number of teenage girls or girls in their early 20s who are doing so much CrossFit and they're really frustrated about their weight and they're not losing weight and they want me to put them on a restrictive diet or a detox. I'm like, no, your body is in stress. But this is what your body's doing and this is how we need to address it. But sorry, I'll go back to kind of normal life stages. So postpartum mums, teenagers, kids, menopause, andropause. These are life stages where we need to normalize weight fluctuation. We need to reassure our clients and explain what their body is doing and why. And as I mentioned, there are also those times of stress that can lead to weight gain. So restricting food, over-exercise, these things cause more stress. We need to support the person through the stress instead. Maybe help them to understand why their bodies need and are deserving of deep nourishment. And if they are open to that, so if that's the choice that they want to take, we can guide them with that and allow them to move on if you're not the right person for them. So that is understanding life stages, normal life stages where weight fluctuation happens. The sixth and final solution I'll offer today is that we learn about the diet cycle, that we learn about disordered eating. And as natural health practitioners, we either learn how to treat them without causing further harm, which involves some pretty extensive training in eating disorders and really, eating disorders is a really complex, challenging area that I get a lot of satisfaction and passion from, but holy shit, my my professional development budget is through the roof. I probably spend, oh my God, a really, really large proportion of my income on continuing professional development, specifically in the area of eating disorders and on supervision. This stuff is expensive and it costs a lot and it takes a lot of time to become proficient at helping people with eating disorders without causing further harm. So we can either learn how to treat people with eating disorders or we can refer them on to people who have done that training. No shame in that. In fact, that's awesome. Like, you are getting help for that person, that you are allowing that person to heal by doing so. Even if we don't do a bunch of eating disorder training, we can screen for eating disorders, right? There are prompts and questionnaires that we can use as practitioners to screen for eating disorders and disordered eating, for orthorexia, which turns up so much in naturopathic practice and natural health and wellness worlds. We can learn to recognize what the red flags are. So as I've said before, disordered eating is extremely common. It is it's showing up in anywhere between 50 and 75% of women, as one pretty big study, I think it's from 2008, showed. It was of several thousand women. And this is why I think that learning about disordered eating, it should be required learning in all naturopathic training. It just should not be a specialization. This is something that we should be covering in all our nutrition subjects, in all our clinical and preclinical subjects, but we don't cover it and it drives me insane. But anyway, learning about the diet cycle, learning about disordered eating, learning how to screen for eating disorders. Oh, and actually that wasn't my last solution. I've got one more. Sorry, not sorry. Number 7. And this is kind of a summary of everything. Holistic health practitioners, we need to treat the root cause. If the weight gain that someone is presenting with and unhappy with and asking us to help them with, if that weight gain is due to hormonal imbalances, if it is due to low metabolism, if it is due to compromised digestion or detoxification, we need to treat these things, right? We don't give them a restrictive diet. We treat these things. And in that way, we be a good practitioner. We keep learning, we keep studying, we keep getting better at helping our clients. We don't do the diet culture thing. We don't just chuck them a restrictive diet and tell them to exercise more. Or, in the health and wellness worlds, we don't call it a diet. We call it a detox protocol, or we call it a lifestyle change, or we call it a cleanse. But it's bullshit, right? They're all fucking diets. They're fucking diets. Okay, so I'm going to have to put an explicit warning on this podcast. We don't want to do that. We don't want to just put them on a restrictive diet and tell them to exercise more. We don't want to put them on a detox protocol indefinitely, something that restricts a bunch of foods and has a bunch of food rules. That is a diet. It's not a lifestyle change. It's not a cleanse. It's a diet. Because doing that's just ineffective. It's just lazy and it's harmful. And you're better than that. We can do better than that. If you're a naturopath, you didn't go to uni for 4 or 5, or if you're in the States, 8 or 9 or 10 years to just hand out 1,200 calorie diets and tell people to do more HIIT. We can do so much better than that. And we also need to couple that with understanding that weight and health are not the same thing, that we can address hormones, metabolism, digestion, detoxification, stress levels, sleep. We can do all of those things, and someone may or may not experience a shift in their weight or their body composition. And we need to be okay with that, and we need to, with consent, educate our clients to be okay with that and to really focus on health, not appearance, not weight, not body shape or size. Okay, so this was a lot longer than I thought it would be. I had a lot to say, and I hope that you got something out of this. If you like this podcast, please subscribe. Please even rate and review the podcast. I would love to have a few more reviews. I've had a couple of ratings that are awesome, but some extra reviews would be awesome. And thank you again. This was very off the cuff. It was a little bit heated. So I hope I did manage to sit in my chair for all of it. I made some big hand expressions, but that's all good. The theme song is Evening Glow by John Anderson. Have a lovely day, everyone. Until next time. Bye.